Hey everyone, welcome to Animation Juice. My name's Richard and today's Monday, which means it's time for another episode of Move It Monday, where every Monday I give you an animation tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about overlapping action. So let's get started. Hey everyone, so here we are in Flash, and like I say, this tutorial is going to be about overlapping action. Now, this is the third in the series of bouncing ball tutorials that we've been doing, because we really want to look at the basics of animation, the basic principles of animation. In the first tutorial, we looked at three of the basic principles, being squash and stretch, timing and spacing, just on a straight up and down ball. The next tutorial we looked at progressing it one step further, where we did the bouncing ball but it moved across the screen, so we could look at arcs and the importance of smooth arcs and how you can use the motion guide tool to achieve that, and also looking at the dissipation of energy with each bounce. And in this tutorial we're going to look at the overlapping action. Now, the overlapping action is the main body of movement. It comes to a stop, but other appendages carry on going. If we look at this example, I've put one of those raccoon hats on this ball, and we're going to animate the overlapping action on the tail of this hat, and you'll see that as the ball moves up and down, so too does the raccoon skin tail thing, but it's slightly delayed, and it will move in a figure eight. I'm going to animate this in real time. In the previous tutorials I've animated the hand-drawn thing first, then we've looked at translating it into Flash. There's no real way of translating overlapping action into Flash with this kind of example. All you would really do if you're in a production environment is you probably plan it out, quickly hand draw it, plan it out, and then just convert the drawings to cleaner vectors. I mean, it's only a 15 frame loop, so it's not really a big deal. So I'm going to take you through how I would animate overlapping action in Flash. So here we are. I've just drawn a quick sketch of this raccoon-tailed hat on this ball, and I'm sort of going to wing this, so I don't really know where it's going to go. I've just drawn in the first frame. I don't know if it's this frame will probably change by the time we finish it, because this is a looping animation, so it needs to fit in with the entire loop. But it's a great starting point. So just draw a starting point is where I would begin on frame one. Quite arbitrary, but it gives you a place to start. And what I've also done is I've drawn a figure eight. Now this is going to be our guide, our arc guide. Like we did in the previous tutorial, we had our motion guide, which was essentially the arcs that our ball was following. And arcs are really essential for appealing animation. It smooths everything out, it makes things feel natural, and a lot of things in nature move in this figure eight, this wave type motion. It's sort of like the flag. If you've ever seen that example in animation, it's the same thing. And so I've just drawn a quick guide. Now again, whether this tail is going to fit on this guide, I don't know, so we'll find out, but it's a good place to start. I know it's going to be vaguely moving in a figure eight action, so let's just dump one in and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is come a few frames along, and I just want to put in another keyframe. Let's just lock our figure eight layer. In fact, let's lock all of our layers apart from the one we're working on. So we've got our hat layer, and I'm just going to hit F6 to make a new keyframe on frame 5. Now this is the same bouncing ball animation as we did in the first episode. I'm just drawn a hat on him. But I'm going to go to frame 5, I'm going to hit F6. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this hat down and then rub out the tail, turn on the onion skin guy, which is the sort of white square with the purple square on top of it, just at the bottom of your timeline, so I can see what's happening. And I'm just going to draw in this so that the tail sort of come up. As we go, the tail is going to drag. Again, I don't really know if that's the correct position for it, but I've got my figure 8 guide, and it's just at this stage all I'm doing is I'm just trying to figure out, I'm just going to block it in, really roughly block it in, so that now the ball is all the way down here. The main body of the hat is going to stay pretty much attached to the ball itself, so when the ball squashes, the main hat is going to squash a little bit with it. Let's just draw. Again, you're just blocking it in. Using this sort of figure 8 as a guide. And in this first pass, this is going to consist of a few passes. But in this first pass, we're just going to block stuff in, and then play it through, and just going to feel. I really suggest not listening to any music or having any distractions when you're doing this, because you really want to be in the animation. You want to be there. You want to absorb. It's very intensive process, I find, animation, because I'm there, I'm feeling this motion as it's happening. So this first pass, I just want to get a feel for the whole animation, and as soon as you get it, as soon as you put stuff in and play it through, you can start to see things that don't feel right. But so let's just go a few more frames forward, so the ball is now bounced back up again, and hat. Now I've stretched the hat just squashed the hat just a little bit, because there's going to be a little bit of overlapping action even on the hat, because as the ball goes up, it's going to compress the hat. Is going to delay slightly. Everything's got inertia. It's going to compress the hat slightly. And it's just going to go, as the ball goes up, it's going to go like this. Anyway, we'll see what it looks like. But let's just... Okay, and then let's come up a few more frames. Stick our hat back on again. Well, that looks like. To grab the transform tool, just hit Q. I'm really just trying to match this to the rough figure 8 that I've drawn, because that's going to really help your when doing objects, when you're animating objects that are dragging. And this is often the way that we're doing. You see that we've animated the ball first. You'd animate the main mass first. That's how you would do it, and then you would do another pass on all of the floppy bits, if it's got ears, or if it's got a tail, or if it's, in this example, he's got a hat. Then go, once you've got the main movement happening, the main mass, in this case the ball, then go in and animate, do a second pass on the overlapping action. So already I can start to see that. That this wants to be just this. This is a good place to start, but it's not. This wants to be further up. Again, I'm looking at the tip of this tail. I think that the arc might be a little bit too big. The tail isn't quite that long at the top, so let's just move the arc down a little bit, just so I'm looking at the tip of the tail matching the edge of the figure 8 there. And let's just squash it a little bit, because this tail I want to keep sort of outside the main mass of the hat. But you'll see already now, as that's this. The tail wants to be. Oops, the tail wants to be following. The tip of the tail needs to be following the edge of the figure 8. Let's say we've got a few keyframes in. Let's just play it. There's no tweening or anything. We're going to do this frame for frame to really absorb the overlapping, really try and understand what's happening in the overlap. So let's just play that. Now that's not so bad. It's not so bad. It's a start, and it gives us a foothold. And this is what I would do when animating before, just rough it out, get a feel for it, and then start doing another pass and clean it up slightly. So let's just. So what I want to do, what I'm seeing is, as he comes down, now again, to grab that, I'm using the lasso tool L. Just grabbing the tail, hitting Q to get the transform handles, and I'm holding Command to sort of skew the bounding box. You see, you get that sort of white arrow. Well, just to skew the bounding box. Again, I'm holding Q. I'm not going to redraw the whole thing. I'm going to work with what I've got first and foremost, just to. I want to drag that. Now, the figure 8 was just a reference as well, so I might be looking at changing the figure 8 round as well. Actually, what I want to do with this one, I'm going to move this on a bit. And let's just make another keyframe by hitting F6, and let's draw this hat. Now there will be some cleanup needed on the hat. It's sort of. Keep it as consistent as possible. Again, I'm just trying to keep that tail on the figure 8. But this, to me, I want it to drag more. It's almost. Really want to stretch, and when you do it, when I'm doing this overlapping action, again, I'm sort of thinking of squash and stretch a little bit as well. I don't want that to. I tend to whistle when I start concentrating. I want to move. I'm going to cut this part of the tail, and I want to stick it. Let's just play that. So it's getting a little bit better. It's getting a little bit better. Now also what I'm seeing is that this tail is coming up far too quickly. You see how the tail between frame 1 and frame 5, the ball really hasn't moved that much, but the tail has moved a massive amount. Now that's overlapping action. The overlapping action, the tail is really following the main motion of the ball. So if the ball hasn't quite moved very far yet, then there's no way the tail should have moved that far. So I want to make this a little bit, I want to move this frame on 1. I'm going to grab the hat portion of this and just move it down a little bit. And let's just stick a keyframe. Again, that's too wild. I'm just going to grab this. You see from here, so you look at the main mass of the ball, between here and here, the ball really isn't moving that far, but the tail is whipped around right to the top of the arc. It's too much for me right now. That really wouldn't happen until the ball has really started to move down a bit. So let's just, no, the tail is just catching up. So I want to drag that frame away a little bit. I want to make a new one here. Let's just, I mean, the actual hat mass itself hasn't really changed much, so let's just copy that and paste it there. The ball has moved up a little bit, so let's just move that up a little bit and draw on the, over here. I think that's not much different from what I'm just doing, is it? Deleted. Yes, that's too much. It's too much. Let's undo that. It's there. It's not going to move that far up from here, really. Scribble that in. Now, look at the bend at the base of the tail. That bend is only really going to happen when the ball has moved down a bit. So I want to move this frame along a little bit more. And let's move the hat mass back onto the and then just stretch up a little bit. I mean, the hat's going to have a little bit of squash and stretch, like I say. Because that is also have a little bit of drag. See how we're looking. It's getting better. You see, with each pass, it's just becoming a little bit clearer, a little bit better. So let's just take a look at the. You can see how the figure 8 has helped us. It's given us a really great guide. Let's actually put in. We're just going to do another pass. Delete this tail here. And it's just building up. It's just sort of gradually putting in some placeholders and seeing, and then playing it through, seeing it, playing it through, seeing it a little bit more, and so on. It really is very heavily feeling based. You can use guys to help, like the figure 8 and arcs. But for this overlapping action, it's really just a case of feeling it, really feeling it, playing it over and over again. You can see I'm just scrubbing backwards and forwards, just grabbing it and scrubbing it. Again, that tail is coming up too soon for my liking. You see, because the base of the tail is moving downwards before the hat or the ball is even pulling it down. So it's just. Adding a little bit of stretch to the hat. Don't be afraid to rub out quite extensively at this stage. Just scribble stuff in, just trying to get that feeling of motion. You can tidy it up once you've got. Really looking at the. Keeping the tip. I'm just thinking about keeping the tip of the tail. Get rid of this person annoying me. So we're almost filled in the entire 15 frames with keyframes, which is let's move that hat a bit more. I'm not talking much. What I'm looking at now is I'm looking at the base of the tail. I'm looking at the tip, making sure it's sort of following the arc, the figure 8. But I'm really looking at the base of the tail. And looking at, let's just play that and see how it's. You see how it's just following that figure 8. It's getting there. It's getting better. It's getting there. We're almost, like I say, filled in those keyframes. So let's. And look how scrappy this is. We're just trying to get the movement. It doesn't matter that it's only, we can tidy it up later. Now if you're on CS5, you're going to have to go to your brushes. Just hit B to get your brush up. And go to these little dots on the left hand side to make them bigger or smaller. But if you're in CS6 and above, I think it is, you can actually use the bracket keys, so CS 5.5 and above, to use the bracket keys, and that'll actually increase the size of your brush for you. And fortunately for me, I'm on CS5 still. Never mind. Doesn't matter. Not about the tool. See how it's really being pulled, the tail is really being stretched at this point. Save. Make sure you keep saving your work. Flash is quite temperamental. With the later versions, there's auto save, but if you're on CS5, I don't think. I'm not sure. I think CS6 has the auto save. So if you're on CS5, CS4, CS3, maybe. Just make sure you're saving often. This one, another hat. There's a little bit of upward movement. So let's turn on our onion skin and just set it so it's. I can see what the last frame was. let's just fill in. You see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is still empty and 11 is still empty. So let's just go and fill the lot in and then play it one more time. Let's, hit F6 to make a keyframe. Just press E to get the eraser. Turn on your onion skin tool. It's going to be sort of behind the hat, so let's just in the last keyframe. Again, just thinking about the tip following that figure 8. Okay, so now we've got all the keyframes filled in. And that one goes blank, so got a feeling that this one wants to be that. There's no change in that one. Now, I think this is one of our earlier frames, so let's very fluid, this. There's lots of S's happening. Okay, so here we so let's just play this again. So it's much smoother. I love how the hat itself is sort of still continuing up. Let's just make this slightly bigger. I love how the hat itself is still continuing up as the ball continues to drop. But there is a slight jump of the tail on the way up. So let's just go and fix that. So let's just step through one, bump, bump, there. See, it goes back down again for some reason. So let's just have a quick look at that. Just want to make sure all the most of the weight is at the bottom of this sort of. Imagine if you're swinging around a sack full of bean, you know, like a bean bag. One of those beanies. If you're swinging it round, all the weight would just end up in the bottom of the sock. So I really want to weight out the tip of this tail thing and thin out where it attaches to the hat. Alright, let's see what else looks like. Let's just, that feels really good. That feels really good. So let's just go in and tidy it up a little bit. Getting rid of some of these scruffy bits and bobs. And then I'm also going to turn off the figure 8 because I don't want it to feel like the tail is running on tracks, even though it is invisible motion arcs. I want to get the feeling of the motion without just the feeling of its itself. So let's just turn off those arcs. In order to make sure it doesn't render when you hit Command Enter, you know, when you hit this, just set it, right click on your layer and hit Guide, and it won't render. You won't see it when you publish your thing. And actually, I really enjoy that. Now let's just talk, before we finish off here, let's just talk about what is happening. Let's just step through it step by step. So the ball is moving down, but the hat has continued to move up. I mean, you'll see that as we... In fact, if I switch this down to a really low frame rate, let's just go 2 frames a second, about 1 frame a second, and hit enter. So as the ball goes down, the tail drags, and as the ball so comes to a stop, the main bit of the hat still continues to go up, and then as the ball squashes, the hat squashes. As the ball goes down, the hat still continues to go up. The main mass of the hat still continues to go up, and so on and so forth. There's more than just overlapping action here. The overlapping action is the figure 8, as you can see. But there's more than that happening in this. There's squash and stretch happening. As you can see, the mass of the tail is it's quite thick and bunched up at the top. And as we go through, as you can see, it starts to stretch out. It's dragging a little bit, being pulled down by the main hat mass and the main ball mass. So compare that frame with this frame. You see how it's stretched out there and there. It's really stretched out. And again, it's quite bunched up there again, and it's really stretched out in that frame. Begins to bunch up a little bit, and also, so it's got squash and stretch on the actual tail of the hat, but it's also got spacing. We're using spacing to show it's moving fast through the long part of the figure 8, and it moves slightly slower on the bends. You can see, we turn on, you can see how it's really bunched up at the top there, but there's only one. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames at the top, and then here 1, 2, and it's through to the bottom, and that has a real nice. It's indicating the speed at which the ball is traveling, echoing the slowing down of the ball, but it's happening just a few frames after, a few frames delayed. Now this has been, I hope this has been a useful tutorial to you, and I hope it's really shown that, I hope watching my process has helped you in how to approach overlapping action yourself. It really is a case of doing the main movement first, so forgetting the hat, just get the bouncing ball happening, and then adding in all of the extra, doing the pass of movement. So you can see how scruffy you can be just trying to get the movement. The figure 8 is a key part of overlapping action. Overlap often travels along a figure 8, so that's a key point to take away from this. I hope this has been really useful watching my process in approaching overlapping action. It's a really important principle, one of the principles of animation, and you see we've worked through this by hand. I find that it's really working through these things by hand really helped to solidify the animation knowledge. Anyway, there it is. There is our bouncing ball with an overlapping raccoon hat. So that's it for this episode of Move It Monday. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, let me know by leaving a like and a comment, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. Make sure to check out the website where the blog posts and the resource files will be. The details are in the description below. And until next week's episode, have a great week, and I'll see you later.